belong to the upper class, there are certain books you read and others that you don't. For those who have trouble discerning worthy literature from mere scribbling for the masses, Lisa Birnbach offers a list of must-read books for any self-respecting prep.
So how do you feel about having your book listed on the master list of the true prep?
I'm a little embarrassed, Ed. Are you embarrassed or are you proud?
I feel like it's there for the wrong reasons, but I don't mind. I like having my book on any list for any reason.
I think I was disqualified because apparently you can't be a prep and have a nose ring. You know, if you have that or a tattoo, apparently that discriminates you.
Wait,
You have
then
one?
I
Do they
wouldn't.
know
Then I
that?
shouldn't be on the list.
What is it? What does it say?
I have a friend who wrote a story that exists only tattooed on people's bodies. So this is a word from her story.
Oh my gosh.
Books like Fitzgerald's, like Cheever's, like Richard Yates, that criticize the preppy lifestyle can still be on the preppy master list, because all that matters is that they take place in the right suburbs and the people are wearing the right clothes and they have the right last name. It doesn't matter that the whole thing is a critique of that. I mean, it's sort of like the problem of many people who read Proust in the wrong way. I mean, Proust is the great critic of snobism, but many snobs read Proust with great pleasure.
Nobody's trying to be preppy, a preppy
just don't like that
novelist.
word.
It's oxymoronic in a way, because it's to limit what you're allowed to do with your project. You know?
Right.
I mean, that's why the fact that John Cheever's stories are on this list is so disappointing to me, because even though when I first read Cheever as a 16-year-old, it may have been that I had access to that work in part because I came from the same class. Now that I've read all those stories dozens upon dozens of times, it doesn't seem to me that their milieu is what they're about at all.
Right.
They're about sort of abiding moral questions and, you know.
And if anything, the people suffer because of their milieu. I mean, there's a kind of defamiliarization, I think, about suburbia. I mean, the guy, the swimmer who swims through all those millions of swimming pools, obviously it's a kind of strange emblem for the emptiness of that life, because as he's swimming, decade after decade is ticking past at the same time, and he ends up realizing that he's a bad person and he's destroyed his family's life. Do you think there's a reverse snobism that writers don't want to write about rich people even when they themselves are rich?
Yeah.
I mean, my students at Princeton, I can't get them to write about their actual war maids and their actual moments on horseback during the hunt. I mean, they won't write about that. They'll write about their year living in a village in India, helping the poor.
I think maybe the politics of the moment kind of are in play with this issue too, because there's this cultural bias against class war and questions about class in general. Don't you think Latin American literature has a kind of different sort of class consciousness than what we have here, because they've had leftist governments in power for a long time?
I think those writers, they're very aware of the class of their characters and the world that they inhabit, which I think is something, you can't ignore that.
I think
It's
North
different with
American
prep.
literature probably ignores that at its peril,
Yeah.
that's a weakness of our part of the world.
I mean, I think the kind of paradoxical effect of political correctness is that white people have stopped writing about black people altogether.
Yeah.
And they complain about somebody like Faulkner, who actually was extremely observant, no matter what his politics were, but he was very observant of black people. Right. And I think that one of the great things about Latin American literature is that you're constantly aware of the native populations, of the black populations, and all the millions of shades in between.
When Jonathan Letham's book, Fortress of Solitude, came out, and I loved it, and it's about this kid growing up, kind of being one of the first to gentrify this Brooklyn neighborhood, and I loved it, and it was on my shelf. But my friends who were not white, who were African American or another ethnicity, could not believe I had that on my shelf. And it still causes a bit of a struggle. The political correctness has gotten to the point where I wonder sometimes if it censors the literature that we pick up to read, or what's being written, if writers censor themselves because they're afraid to explore something.
I think what we're saying is that the American novel has to be more ambitious, both with class and with race, if it's going to actually capture the nation as it is now.
Yeah.